The Little Root Lab is a homegrown, self-learning journey into IT and cybersecurity, narrated by Simon Arnold. It is being built from the ground up, documenting progression through systems, networking, and SOC concepts as it develops, including the mistakes, the learning process, and the real-world growth that comes with it. It is hoped that viewers find value in the series and are able to take something useful from the journey as it unfolds. Enjoy.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Little Root Lab. This is episode 2, part 2 of installing Wazuh, and wow, it's all complete, everyone. It's all ready to go. I've basically built an amazing lab from almost nothing. Yeah, so welcome back to the podcast, and yeah, it's amazing. It's taken about 12 to 15 hours to get all ready, so what's happened is that really I've built and stabilised a small security operations centre, SOC lab, using Wazuh, deployed in a standard 3-tier architecture across 2 physical hosts. And just to give you an idea really, on the server side I ran Kubuntu and deployed the full Wazuh stack. The Wazuh manager, the indexer, which is OpenSearch-based backend, and the dashboard. And I've done this so much that I even know all of the, just what to write on the command line, So we've got sudo systemctl status, Wazuh minus manager, Wazuh minus indexer, Wazuh minus dashboard. Like, I've done that so many times in my brain that it just, everything has become second nature really. So I've created a complete SIEM pipeline where the manager handles event collection and agent orchestration. The indexer provides log storage and search capability. And the dashboard, of course, exposes visualisation and analytics via a web interface. Now, that was interesting with the web interface because I'm using a digibox from Vodafone. There's no Wi-Fi in my place. I was waiting 3 years for Wi-Fi actually to get in, but Vodafone or Telecom has been really, like, it's getting beyond embarrassing not even connecting it into the phone and getting a full service. Because it's not just my place where I live, it's actually the neighbour and all of the young guys across the way. They haven't even got a service yet, although the glass fibre has been installed 6 months ago. I mean, Germany, get your finger out, people, really. So once I really got to grips with all the cables, so I went through the Ethernet cables again. A big delay, and this is why I've done part 2 of Wazuh, is that there was some kind of problem with the Ethernet cable going from the Fujitsu 2014 to the TP link box, right? And then I realized that actually the Ethernet, the connections on the TP link box were slightly different. So I changed them around and I thought, well, let's put in the Ethernet cable to the digibox. And then I realized that there's actually 2 sockets for Ethernet connectability. Because you've got to imagine, and this is what a lot of people can probably associate with, is when you're building up your a lab at home, number one, with RAM and SSDs and all that stuff, they're so expensive these days that it actually makes more sense to go back to the old infrastructure, really. But mine is so old that, yeah, I could put in like a dongle for, Wi-Fi through the PC, but I don't want to. I want the more secure network with the Ethernet cable. So it's all really just layering the Ethernet cables around my lab, which is fine. But you were thinking 2026, yeah, it'd be great if we could connect to Wi-Fi and just do that normally. But on many infrastructure levels, not just my area, you know, the whole country as well, they haven't prepared themselves for any of this stuff. It's literally embarrassing. Germany? No. It's like when I came to Germany in 2009, I thought to myself, oh my God, it's like the 80s was in England, but not in a good way. And I tell you what, it hasn't moved on from the 80s at all. And we got, you know, it's almost 20 years later. So I have now currently got the Digibox with 2 Ethernet cables coming out of, yeah, the Digibox into aforementioned computers. And you know, I think you've heard that Linux was running it. I think I told you on the last episode that I got Manager, Indexer and Dashboard on Linux Kubuntu all enabled, which was great, okay? There's a bit of drop off because of the low, operational capability of my 2013 MacBook Pro. I tell you what, it's a beast though. It's brilliant. It's really, really reliable. I love that thing. And even if the the computer is overheating a bit, I've got actually a fan just to, you know, push air around just to make it a bit better. But then with Windows, it wasn't necessarily, oh my goodness, Windows, that's difficult. Because with the, okay, you've got Kubuntu with the Plasma, and that's lovely. That's really, really nice. But with the Windows, it's almost the same feeling. But how many times I had to go through just the administrator. So it's like it's not the B line, it's the A line. Straight away, administrator, get onto using that. And I installed Wazuh just with command lines, right? But let me just explain it a little bit more. Maybe I've gone off at a tangent really. But once services were validated as active and running, the stack functioned as a full operational local SIEM environment, and I was really, really pleased. On the endpoint side, I used Windows 10 as a monitored host, of course, and during the setup, I resolved a DHCP failure where the system was stuck on a APIPA address, and of course it wasn't reset the Wi-Fi because it's a Digibox. I just pulled the plug for 30 seconds and that did the job. But there was an indication of a broken lease negotiation with the DHCP server, but this was resolved by restoring proper network stack behavior, you know, after which the host obtained, you know, an address via the DHCP service provided by my Vodafone router. So I did that, which was good. And then I realized that once the layer 3 connectivity was stable, I installed the Wazuh agent on Windows and configured it to communicate directly with the Wazuh manager, which was lovely, over the LAN. It was fantastic. I took out, I think there's a family network connection. I have to think about that for a second. But I removed that from Windows 10 and everything started to work. So yeah, I was establishing a bi-directional communication between endpoint and SIEM. I validated connectivity using the ICMP testing and confirmed that both systems were operating within the same subnet, allowing successful package exchange and agent to manager communication, you know. From the architecture perspective, this setup represents a minimal SOC deployment model. So a centralized SIEM node, so manager and indexer and dashboard, which I explained at the start, and a distributed endpoint generating telemetry via the agent, if you get what I mean. The Windows host functions as a log source, sending event data to the manager, which forwards and indexes it through the OpenSearch backend for correlation and visualization. But just thinking about it, I mean, in terms of troubleshooting scope, the build involved multiple layers of operational security engineering, the DHCP resolution network interface recovery, service lifestyle management, system D and Windows services, and basically like agent registration and synchronization, and verification of inter-host communication across a flat layer to LAN. And you know, if you've listened to the very first episode, and you've been following this little journey, I really have like designated so much of the top 30 commands, or 60 commands on Windows and Linux to memory, and I can just bring that out, and use that. I mean, from a SOC perspective, I always say SOC. I don't know why. I guess the word sock sounds like we're going to put our socks on. I don't know. But this aligns with early tier 1 operational capability, and it demonstrates, I guess, just practical understanding of endpoint onboarding, a SIEM deployment architecture, basic network diagnostics, so ARP, ICMP, and the last one? Oh, DHCP lease recovery, and service validation across Linux and Windows environments, right? It also reflects the ability to integrate multiple subsystems into a functioning security telemetry pipeline. And I've had a blast. It's really literally been 12 hours, and using the command line to write everything that's relevant. I really have to thank my own 3 hours a day of learning since November last year, because I've never realized how important the muscle memory is when we're writing on a keyboard, that everything just flows brilliantly. Because this time I was using a lot of lowercase and uppercase as well. And it wasn't just pseudo grep, it wasn't just the lovely line, which means pipe. I love all that stuff. I really do. I love kind of the history of where it's all come from as well. But that's maybe for another podcast episode. But it was literally like, okay, I need to enter this now. And 99% I know where the buttons are, using a QWERTY keyboard and not QWERTY. Because, yeah, you just get into the rhythm of it, really. So I'm all set. I'm going to go on LinkedIn and share my progress, really, and do some screenshots, because I've realised that, I mean, here's the thing. When I loaded up Kubuntu, I was like, lovely, Plasma. Then Wazuh's going to be the same. I'm going to see it on a Kubuntu style desktop, thing. And I'm not, apparently. And it's fine to know where my limits are and where the edges are, really. But nothing's better than seeing just a confirmation of Wazuh being actually on both computers now, being ready to use. So the lab now represents a working baseline SOC environment capable of ingesting endpoint logs, processing them through a SIEM pipeline, and exposing them through a centralized dashboard, which I've tapped in so many times with dashboard, with Wazuh minus dashboard, effectively mirroring the core architecture used in production security operation centers at a simplified scale. And not all of us have got all the money in the world. This whole setup cost €95. Seriously, including a monitor which cost me 50. So that's where I'm up to. Thank you so much for listening. Go over to LinkedIn. It's going to take a couple of days just for me to work out the LinkedIn profile, and I've used LinkedIn before, so it's not going to be a problem. But excited? No, not really. I'm just if I can't go a day without seeing the command line. I love what I'm doing. Still looking for a job, SOC Tier 1 junior level. Follow my progress on here and follow my progress on LinkedIn where you'll see it more visually. So thanks very much for listening, and I'm going to get back to my SOC lab. Have a great weekend.